if they did, we probably wouldn't have a lot of these incidents that we're seeing now. It's inviting tragedy. And we already saw with Miss Good shooting. If she had stayed in her car and got out when the cops asked her to, she'd be walking around today. It's as simple as that. The burden is on the people who are doing what they shouldn't be doing and disobey lawful orders.
Bill, so when I interviewed Mayor Fry, he argued with me a little bit about the status of Minneapolis being a sanctuary city. They make it fancy and call it a separation ordinance. It's not a sanctuary, but yet you look at the policies and they specifically do not cooperate with ICE. The city council just weeks ago actually went a step further and passed a little policy to say that the ICE vehicles were forbidden to park on government parking lots. They're leaning into this. And so I just, Rachel and I were talking a little earlier, it doesn't seem like this is a winning play to go anti-ICE, which takes us back to how we got here, which all begins with the reckless open border policies of the previous administration.
Well, you're right, but it is a winning play for them if they want to please the activists. Minneapolis is a very liberal city. They pride themselves on their liberalism, and they think they're standing up to the federal government. Whether they're doing it lawfully is another question. Much was made about, can you take pictures? I don't think people would care so much about taking photos if there was not the hint of violence in the back. Look, the woman who got killed was a menace. She's driving a car. Clearly, the officer thought his life was in danger, and we're going to see a lot more tragedies like that. You can't play around when there are people with guns around.
The problem is that the Democrats are blowing all this smoke. They're causing all this rage and all the BS that's going on with the rioters. It's a smokescreen. Number one, they're trying to take the attention off of the Somali scam that both the governor and the mayor are part of. And I really think that it even goes a little bit further than that. They're trying to cause all this distraction so that things going on around the world, like the New World Order, which is still a thing. If you'll check out Canada, actually we'll go over that in just a few minutes. But they're trying to distract from that so that there will be opposed. I'm not sure. I'm not doubting Trump. I hope he's a lot smarter than people are giving him credit for. I think he is. I really, first of all, my faith is in God. Jesus Christ is my Savior. So, all you Muslims and people that are over here to destroy America, we're not going to go down without a fight. So be it. Be ready. I think people like me I'm just waiting on somebody to tell me I can. I'd hate to do it without their permission because I know I'd be in jail or something like a lot of these activists. I want to be smart about it. I honestly don't believe in war games and rules of war. When it's a war, and it's a true war, there ain't gonna be no fighting by rules. I'm gonna take you out. So know that. Just like y'all are playing up there in Minneapolis, there are those like me that feel the same. That's not a threat. That's a promise.
Don't care about their residents' actual safety because it seems their rhetoric is pushing them to cross the line between protesting, holding signs peacefully, and interfering, impeding, and ultimately assaulting law enforcement, which is a federal crime. Bill McGurn, as always, thank you for taking time. By the way, Fox reached out to the city of Minneapolis for a statement. about working with the protesters. We have not yet gotten a response.
I like Fox News, but sometimes I wonder whose side they're really on. Especially when they say things like, oh, we can't be violent like they are. So we're supposed to, I know the Bible says turn the other cheek and vengeance is his. But sometimes that's hard. And sometimes I believe God calls us to fight. He does give us a brain. I mean, David did beat Goliath, right? So I'm just saying, I know y'all are sitting well and you don't really want to feel like you have to fight, but you know, and you're cushioned because you are a TV anchor and a TV host, so you don't really know how it is out here. Do you? I mean, really, have you ever had to wonder when your next meal was coming? Or have you had to wonder when your 75-year-old mom could actually retire because she's a slave to the system that's feeding the monsters like the Somalians and the people in California and this trash in Minneapolis, Minnesota? When is it okay to fight back? Fox News, when? So let's listen to what this turd buster has to say. Knowing what's been going on with Greenland and everything else, he comes out with this.
Canada and China have reached a preliminary but landmark trade agreement.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney trumpeted a deal he struck with China at a banquet on Friday after he was welcomed by President Xi Jinping as Canada's first leader to visit Beijing since 2017. Carney is seeking to rebuild ties with his country's second-largest trading partner after the United States. Canada's previous Trudeau government had imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, prompting a retaliation from Beijing. That led to a slump of some 10% in China's 2025 imports of Canadian goods. The two nations on Friday promised to tear down trade barriers while forging new strategic ties.
With our new strategic partnership.
According to Carney, Canada will cut its tariff on up to 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles to 6.1%. Carney said he expects the deal to drive considerable Chinese investment into Canada's auto sector and increase local demand. Though it was slammed by Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Canada's main auto manufacturing province. Ford complained on X that it gave China a Canadian foothold. But as part of the agreement, China will also lower tariffs on farm and food products. For example, on canola seed, a $4 billion market for Canada.
Check this out. He talks about the New World Order. Better. What's even better or funnier is check out his person beside of him. The look he gives him.
The world has changed much since that last visit. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
Sets up well for the new world order. What did you mean by that? What is the new world order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost.
See Canada and Mexico do well, but the problem is we don't need their product. You know, we don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars made in Mexico. We want to make them here. And that's what's happening. Everybody's moving here. From Canada, they're coming here.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is in China on a historic 4-day visit, the first by a Canadian leader in nearly a decade, seeking to repair strained ties and reshape Canada's global trade strategy amid growing tensions with the United States. Arriving in Beijing, Carney declared that a new strategic partnership between Canada and China could position both countries for what he called a new world order, arguing that the global system has fundamentally changed since Canada's last high-level visit.
Yesterday, when you met with Premier Lee, one of the things you said in the public remarks was this partnership with Canada and China, this new partnership, sets us up well for the new world order. What did you mean by that? What is the new world order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what are the trading, what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing, plurilateral deals, if I can use that term, Trans-Pacific Partnership, potential linkages between Trans-Pacific Partnership and the EU. Where is financial regulation, payment system regulation going to fit into that? All of these aspects, I mean, use a fancy word, like the architecture, the multilateral system that has been developing these is being eroded, to use a polite term, undercut, use another term. So the question is, what gets built in that place? How much of a patchwork is it? How much is it just on a bilateral basis? Or where do like-minded countries in certain areas? So like-minded countries, just to be clear, doesn't mean you agree on everything. Aspects, for example, on digital trade or agricultural trade, climate finance as another area, to move into areas of geostrategy, geosecurity.
I guess he thought we are not on his level. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for dumbing that down for us. But the way I see it, you're a traitor against the United States. That's the way I see it. So, with that being said, that's what I was talking about earlier. All this hoopla, all this Democrat states having their riots and showing their asses. Come on. You know that's what they're doing. They got every freeloader in the world out there and they're paying them to do it. Most of these people are still living with their mom and dad because they can't hold a job or pay their bills. Not necessarily hold a job, but you must have some kind of profession to make money in this world that we live in. So, with that being said, that's what I was talking about. That's why they're blowing all the smoke. It's all a distraction. I just wonder when we're going to fight back. And I'm sure Trump's got a plan. Wouldn't it be terrible if we took Canada too? So what if we had Canada and Greenland? I don't really like Canadians. Sorry, y'all can't drive worth a crap. For sure. Can we just send those people to China and take their land? Maybe. I don't know. I'm sure there's some nice people in Canada. I just hadn't personally met them. Alright, I'm going to wrap it up with that. I hope y'all have a good week next week. I hope it's prosperous. And God bless as you ever move.